New Thought Media Network proudly presents Having Courageous Conversations, where real talk dives deep. Each week we go beyond surface talk. We open our hearts, speak our truths, and dive into the stories that shape us. No scripts, no filters, just powerful, unforgettable conversations about life, purpose, healing, and truth. Join the conversation, because your voice belongs here. Please like, share, and subscribe. Check out our YouTube channel at Having Courageous Conversations or email us at yourshowyourvoice@gmail.com. Now, let's have a courageous conversation.
The views and opinions of our guest and hosts do not necessarily reflect those of New Thought Media Network, or any organization we may be affiliated with. Here at New Thought Media Network, we welcome freedom of speech and courageous conversations. There are many topics that can be difficult to navigate. Challenging the status quo and engaging in lively debate is important to expanding our understanding of one another and life in general. Creating a peaceful world doesn't happen because no one disagrees, it happens from a willingness to understanding one another. In our programming, we strive to expand consciousness and assist people in creating remarkable lives. Your comments are welcome at info@ntmedia.org.
Good afternoon and welcome to Having Courageous Conversations. Such a wonderful way to end a Wednesday, that hump day. And I just want to begin just by sharing a little bit of information. Okay, I had everything open and now I don't. Isn't that the way? My apologies, everyone. So we've changed the name of the show. So Having Courageous Conversations is a heartfelt online series where we explore the transformative power of honest dialogue. Rooted in authenticity, compassion, and spiritual awareness, this show invites voices from all walks of life to engage in meaningful conversations that matter. Conversations we often avoid, but deeply need. Born from the reflections of Out of My Mouth and the soulfulness of Spirit Cafe, this space is for those who are ready to speak up, sit with discomfort, challenge assumptions, and connect deeply with themselves and others. Sounds wonderful. And today's show is called It's Not All Bad News, a veteran reporter's perspective. And now I invite Marg to introduce today's guest.
Thanks, Barbara. Yes, I'm looking forward to talking with Valerie. First, I will say a little bit about Valerie, and here she comes onto the show too. Valerie Hill is a 21-year veteran reporter with the Waterloo Regional Record, retiring in December of 2019. Well, I think I would debate on the retiring part. She has covered hard news, courts, politics, everything except sports. But her heart has always been in telling people's stories. Valerie continues to write the weekly obituary feature, Lifetimes, for the Record, and she has a number of other writing and editing projects in the works. Valerie has recently joined the board at Unity Kitchener, and she serves as the secretary. Thank you very much for that, Valerie. So now we're going to have a conversation with Valerie. And before we start, I just want to say that I was at a gathering with Valerie where some people were talking about the media. And I have to admit that I was sort of on that bandwagon too, even though I don't watch the news because it's not good for me. Not the news is not good, but I just don't absorb it well. And people were saying, you know, oh, the media this, the media that, it was all negative. And Valerie had a different opinion on that. And I said, I'd like to hear more about that. Would you be interested in coming on the show of Courageous Conversation? And she said, yes. So Valerie, please share.
Oh, okay.
Did I put you on the spot?
Sorry, I didn't realize. Yeah, okay. Yeah, this actually all turned. I've been a member of Unity off and on for a number of years, and I've sat almost quietly when I've heard even ministers complain about the media and saying that essentially the media has no part in their lives and that it brings nothing but bad news. And I've heard this so many times, and finally it came up again. I was on one Sunday morning and I'd had enough. I said, that's it. I'm not being quiet about this anymore, because it's not true. It is just simply not true. We serve such an important part of any community, and people just, I don't think they really understand what would happen if there was no media. And when I talk about media, I'm referring to journalists. I'm talking about television, radio, and print. And I'm a print journalist. And the three different kinds of media, we do our jobs very differently. The print tends to be, we have the option, we have the great fortune of being able to go much more into depth with any of our stories. The news, I'm often sitting watching the TV news and yelling at the reporter because he or she did not ask all the important questions. So we are all individuals, we're just people, and we all do our jobs very differently. But I am the first one to be a cheerleader for the media. And there's, to me, the most important thing is, now in Unity, we are taught that we are part of the world. We are just one cog in a very large wheel that goes all around the world. We're all connected. We are all part of humanity. And when you're ignoring the media and blaming the media and blaming reporters and saying, oh, that I can't deal with that news because it makes me feel bad, you are essentially saying, well, that's not important. Mm. You are part of this, whether you like it or not, warts and all. We are all part of the same family, right? You just have to find a different way of dealing with that information. And when people tell me that, you know, they have trouble with dealing with this bad news, then get off your rear end and do something about it, right? Don't sit back and whine about it. You know, you can do something. It doesn't have to be a big thing. It can be a small thing. It can be getting in touch with the Mennonite Central Committee, which is here in Kitchener. And they do so much wonderful work all around the world. You can volunteer with them. You can volunteer with any organization. You can donate money. You can donate time. You can donate all kinds of things. You can do something about it and change the way you think about these bad news stories. You know, if we all collectively pray that that things are going to change, then eventually, hopefully, they will change. Yeah. But how important is it for people in a place like Gaza or Afghanistan to know that we here in Canada are thinking about them? We're not turning off the news when the bad news comes on TV or on the news or on the radio or in the newspaper. We are paying attention and we care.
That's very valuable, Valerie, and I love that, because I am one of the people who does not watch the news on a regular basis. I do know what's going on because I'm getting it from my husband or from other people, or listening to my husband because he watches everything all the time. My challenge with media is things like CP24, where there's a scroll of, you know, a few main stories, and they're replayed over and over and over and over and over and over. And our consciousness, I mean, if we sat down and watched a half hour of news, the half hour news show or the 1 hour news show, and then that was it, we would get a lot of good information. We could read a newspaper. That would be even better. I was trained as a journalist back many, many years ago. And when I was trained, it was who, what, where, when, why, how. There was no, here's my opinion. And so the problem that I have with some, and I won't just say media anymore, so thank you for that, for your comments, because I appreciate them. But what I will say is some reporters have a way of putting their personal perspective on everything. And when I hear what if this happened, or what if that happened, that's not the news. That's you getting into some sort of fear-based idea of something that did not occur. And it started, for me, the first time I noticed it was with the shooting on Parliament Hill in Ottawa. And when I heard the reporter, you know, when it was all said and done, you know, the sergeant shot the intruder, blah, 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 it's all done. then the reporter goes on to say, now, what if they had gotten into this room, or what if they had gotten into that room? What would have happened? It didn't happen. Why are you talking about it?
Mhm.
Let's talk about what did happen.
Mhm.
So that for me is where I have strayed from watching a lot of the news channels. I don't mind some of the CBC. I don't mind the BBC, but I try to not watch it 24/7, because I think our mind doesn't really distinguish between a single event, and if it's been repeated 1,000 times, it's almost like it's everywhere, and it increases the level of fear in some people. So I've suggested to my people, don't watch it at bedtime, watch it at dinner time, or at noon or something, and don't sit in front of CP24 or something like that right around the clock where you're watching it 24/7. So that's my 2 cents worth.
Yeah, CP24 is very different than, say, reading a newspaper. And of course, being a print journalist, I'm a little bit biased, but it's easier to filter out what you don't want to read. But again, you should read everything. And in a newspaper, you've got that additional luxury of just sitting quietly. You sit with your newspaper, your cup of tea in the morning, your coffee, your wine at night, whatever your preference is. And you're engaged, you're one-on-one with that very tactile sensation of holding a newspaper in your hand.
I was trained in newspaper as well. Plus I worked for the Calgary Herald for 10 years.
Yeah. Okay.
And,
so you know what I speak.
Yes, I have a newspaper background, and my training was newspaper journalism, and I loved it.
Yeah.
So, Valerie, what inspired you to become a journalist?
Do you know, I'm not sure. Apparently, even my friends that I've had since I was a kid told me that I always spoke about being a journalist. Always. We weren't really a big news kind of family. We weren't involved in politics or anything like that. So I don't know. I think sometimes we just naturally gravitate to certain careers or occupations, and for me, but as I said, in my bio, I'm personally, my big thing is telling people's stories. That's what I've always loved to do, and people are so engaged when you look them in the eye and you say, I want you to tell me your story. They just poo, and then they'll say, but don't put this in the paper. I get that a lot. Well, then don't tell me. People want to talk. They want to be listened to.
Yes,
they want to be listened to. And it's the journalists who listen to them. And it's the journalists who then pass these stories on. Now, I've been writing Lifetime pretty much since I started at the Record. So I actually started it in 2000. And as far as we know, it is the only reporter-written obituary feature in any newspaper in Canada. I think the Hamilton Spectator does a small. Oh, there we go.
That's awesome.
Oh yes, that's from this. They asked me to write a feature about when I retired, about some of the highlights. 20 years of writing. Oh, I've got a lot of stories. Actually, I printed off all my favorites, so I've got a stack like this. I don't know what I'm ever going to do with it, but
a book.
Yeah. Well, I actually had suggested that to the editor, and they loved the idea. But then it was on typical journalist. He was on to the next big thing.
Well, there's always another story.
There's always another story.
Always
That's
another
right.
story, so.
But I love telling people stories, because even when I was a little kid, when I was 12, we moved from Toronto to a farm outside of Acton. And my favorite thing was I was always following the old farmers around and asking them to tell me stories. And they were thrilled having this little kid who was actually interested, because everybody else in the family had heard Grandpa's stories 100 times. But I really wanted to hear them, because people are so freaking interesting.
Yes,
we've done so many interesting things. And like recently, the Lifetimes that I wrote for this week was a doctor, and her friends graduated from the University of Toronto in 1962. And you can imagine what it was like for young female not journalist. She became a surgeon, and they, they really struggled. They had. She said, I was talking to one of her friends, and she said, well, there were some of the men in the course that supported us, but for the most part, they put up roadblocks. But they did it anyway. But they did it because they held fast to each other. They supported each other. And I just picture them as these little warriors, and brilliant women, absolutely brilliant. And they weren't about to be told what they could and couldn't do. Those stories. And I love writing stories about the really quirky people. I really like writing stories for cranky people too. There was one lady that I had called her daughter, because I read in her obituary. She had been a school secretary at one of the local schools here in Kitchener. It was very glowing because her husband had written the obituary. When I called the daughter said, "Oh, my mother, do I have to say anything nice?" And, oh boy, this is going to be a good one. But of course, I have to be very diplomatic. Yeah, so you get into the personalities of people and the conflicts and how they resolve those conflicts. I've written a lot of stories about children that have died of cancer, and learned that with children, they're not worried about themselves dying. They're worried about their families. They're worried about mom and dad and their siblings. What's going to happen to them? How are they going to feel? And it started to make me think, so at what point in our life does that sort of switch and we start feeling sorry for ourselves? There's an awful lot of life lessons in any story you read about people. The job has also given me a lot of opportunity to travel to interesting places. I was up in Hudson Bay in a Cree community for a couple of weeks. Of course, I decided to go in February. It was a little on the frosty side.
Nice.
But really gave me some insight into Indigenous cultures. And of course, there was talk about residential schools and everything the people had gone through. And it was interesting too, because the people in the village were very suspicious. This white woman shows up in their community. What does she want? She's gonna be looking for dirt. She's gonna be looking for stories about alcoholism and suicide. And I wasn't. That's not what I wanted to do at all. But I understood when I left a couple of weeks later and reflected on it. I understood why they felt that way. And it turned out actually they were a wonderful community. They had very little trouble, partly because one of their police officers was from that community, and he told me, he says, "I hear about the parties before they get started, and I put a stop to them."
So what did you write about when you were there? What did you write about?
Well, I was there because there was, if anybody knows what an outpost nurse is. So the government has a group of women that they usually work in regular jobs. They have hospital jobs. They work in medical offices and such, but they're on a roster through the outpost nurse. And they might get called to somewhere. Well, they usually get called to really remote areas because they don't have any medical facilities up there. So I was up there with a nurse who was from Guelph, and she was this adorable little short Scottish woman who was totally fearless. So the Record flew me and a photographer up there to spend the 2 weeks with her and with the community too. It was very, very enlightening, even just talking to her. And so I didn't know anything about these outpost nurse. So the thing is, when you've been a reporter as long as I have, the brain is full of so much information, and I just can't help but constantly regurgitate it, whether people want to hear it or not, And like I said at our gathering the other day, no matter what you need, I got a guy. I know somebody.
I know somebody who knows somebody.
Yeah.
I see Deja's posting. Excuse me for 1 second, Barbara. Deja's posting and inviting people to make comments or ask questions, say hi. And I'm going to, say it out loud. If you have any questions for Valerie, please post them, and I'm sure she will answer. Now I just put you on the spot there, Valerie, but anyway, go ahead, Barbara.
I think Valerie can handle it.
Yeah, ask me anything. I'm good with that.
Ask me anything. Now, what was I going to ask you? My mind just took a vacation.
Oopsie.
Oh my gosh.
I can ask a
Go ahead.
question while
Go ahead.
you find that again. You were talking about the doctors, and I think having a challenge that with men. So they needed to, you know, I am woman, here we roar.
Yeah.
And what about being a reporter?
Oh, yeah. Well, guess what we would have been covering in those days? We were in the women's section, and we'd be doing fashion and who was visiting who. And I mean, there were a few, very few, but there were a few female reporters that were actually on the front lines. And they did an incredible job. But I mean, women can get into places that men couldn't too, you know, using our feminine wiles, which I understand is a thing. I've never had it before, but but I'm sure you know that they were really able to get into places because people tend to trust women.
They do.
Yeah, they do.
People should know different. I don't know.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting. What are I mean, you've done all these stories about people's lives. Is there one that really stands out for you as something truly surprising or remarkable that surprised you?
Well, they are certainly all unique in their own way. I love stories about quirky people, you know, the ones that really think outside the box. I described one guy as he refused to be that square peg being hammered in through a round hole. You know? So it gives me a lot of opportunity to be a little writerly when I'm writing these stories. They're not news stories. They're very much not news stories.
Of course not.
Yeah. So it really is storytelling. So anybody that provides an opportunity to, tell me about their life. Oh, well, actually, if it's a lifetime's, they're dead. I'm getting all this information from everybody else in the family and hopefully getting it right. And I usually do. I mean, the person's gone, so they can't defend themselves. But I would say that in all the lifetimes I've written, writing about the children, although it's sad, it is just such an incredible honor. These children never had a chance at life, and yet they will be forever remembered in print. There was one teenage girl, and she unfortunately died by suicide. And by the way, we no longer say that somebody is you have to say that they died by suicide. Okay.
Yeah.
They didn't commit
Not committed.
suicide. Yeah. But her father had been killed in a road accident. And she was just so distraught. She overdosed on pills. And I was sitting on the couch with her mother on one side and her grandmother on the other side. And they were arguing back and forth about whose fault it was. Well, you should have been keeping an eye on her medication. Well, I did, blah, blah, blah. And then they both looked at me and said, what do you think? Yeah. You don't ask me that. Oh my gosh. Kidding. I am not getting in the middle of this. But yeah, definitely telling these children's stories. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that would be remarkable. In my ministry, I've done more memorial celebration of life type services than I have weddings. And often people will ask, oh, weddings must be fun. I'm going, I actually feel more honored to do a memorial service.
Yeah.
To speak over a person's life is truly an honor and a privilege to be asked to do that. So it's a little different than a wedding, which is a moment in someone's life, which is lovely. But
it's all the same thing, isn't it? It's all mushy, kissy stuff, right? Yeah,
it is. And more often than not these days, they're not interested in anything spiritual. They're just, sign the papers and let's have a party. So sometimes they're a little, I like the ones that are a little more spiritual and joining together in a more conscious state, but that doesn't always happen.
Yeah.
But I do.
Or a little quirky, maybe?
What's that?
Or a little quirky, maybe? Those who are joining and expressing a little quirky?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Quirky's good, actually. I know a few really interesting, quirky people.
Mhm.
So outside the lifestyles that you write, what is it called?
Lifetimes.
Life. Yes,
Lifetimes.
yes, lifetimes. Yes. Outside of that, is there an
There she
article
is.
that?
Mhm. That's the doctor I was just telling you about. That just popped up on
Okay,
mine
That's
here.
amazing.
wow.
That's her.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Deja.
She actually went up. She was the chief of surgery in Dryden. She'd gone up there to join a surgeon, and he died, and it was just up to her. And she was really interested in helping the indigenous communities. So she learned to fly, and she bought a plane so she could go into these flying communities. So she was flying all over the north of Dryden. So yeah.
Wow.
Adventurous
Women
people.
are amazing.
Yes, yeah, yeah. Yes, okay, so outside of Lifetimes, when I was working full-time, I was the arts and life reporter. So I did all the arts. So I did all the music, mostly the jazz. I covered the jazz room in Waterloo, anything going on at the Registry Theatre. I did all Drayton theater productions. I was their theater reviewer. Yeah, anything to do with, there was actually at one point 3 of us arts reporters, so we all kind of had, our own little areas. And yeah, I love theater. And so I would be reviewing a play, pretty much a play a week, and then going to concerts every single week. And it's funny because then when I retired and I became a civilian and I had to start paying for my own tickets. I don't like that.
The price of tickets these days is
Yeah.
quite remarkable, shall we say?
Yeah. But I was never interested in politics. And, whenever there was an election coming up, that was the newsroom, all the reporters, they get all excited and they're having pizza parties and they're all blah, 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 blah about all the politicians. And it never interested me. So, yeah, after a few years, the editors figured out, so yeah, don't get Valerie involved because she's not good. She just doesn't care. I always used to say to my editors, they'd ask me to do something and I'd say, is it fun? Because if it's not fun, I'm not going to do it. So after you've been working in a newspaper long enough, you can get away with this kind of stuff.
Exactly.
As a young reporter, I never would have said that.
No kidding. No kidding. Well, we're at our halfway mark, so we're going to go into a little commercial break. You're watching Having Courageous Conversations here on the New Thought Media Network. Our wonderful guest, Valerie Hill, is a journalist in Kitchener and a remarkable, powerful woman. So don't go away because there's a lot more to share. We'll be right back.
The affiliated New Thought Network is pleased to present Deep Within, Mining Our Hidden Treasures, a hybrid spiritual retreat, October 6th through the 10th at Unity Village in Lee's Summit, Missouri, featuring our opening keynote address from Reverend Michelle Ezigwu. Our Tuesday evening Raise the Roof experience with Reverend Dr. Martha Creek, special musical artist Ricky Byers. Wednesday features a morning keynote with Centers for Spiritual Living spiritual leader, Reverend Dr. Sonny Cantrell Smith, and evening keynotes from Reverend Dr. Robert Brzezinski and Reverend Tanya Beverly. Reverend Dr. Janine Burns rounds out our keynote speakers on Thursday morning. Visit www.antn.org for more details. Virtual and in-person registration is now available. We would love to see you there. ANTN, connecting the New Thought community through consciousness and love.
New Thought Media Network. We are a global broadcast network of positive music, media, and entertainment, inspiring humanity's evolution along the journey of enlightenment and creating a world of love, peace, empowerment, and prosperity for all. New Thought Media Network. Positively inspiring.
And we're back having courageous conversations, which is what we love to do here every Wednesday. Our other cohort, Cheryl Rogers, is not with us today. She's in a very important meeting, and she'll be back with us next week. All right. So I was just wondering, Valerie, is there anything that you have really wanted to do as a journalist, but as yet have not been able to get to, or been invited to, or had the opportunity, or whatever?
Not really. No.
Yep.
The record was always really good at letting me do whatever I wanted to do. So if I had a story idea, let me talk a little bit about how this actually happens. Okay?
Yeah.
So with each reporter has a general area that we're responsible for. Okay, it's our job, not the editor's job. It's our job to be out in the community, and I'm very gregarious, so I'm out in the community a lot. And anytime anybody starts talking, sometimes I'm overhearing a conversation or somebody's telling me something, and I'll immediately think that would be a really good story. And that would be the very beginning of it. Or I get emails, or people will phone me because, they know that these are the kind of stories that I like to write. Somebody like court reporters, so the court reporter, it's a guy right now, but there used to be 3 of them. And he's responsible for going into court, for keeping up to date on what's happening, what court cases are coming up. Same with the police reporter, the city hall reporter. They have to make all those connections. They have to know all the politicians. They have to know what all the issues are. So this is our responsibility. Yes, the editors, occasionally the editors will be told about some event or something coming up, and they'll ask a reporter to follow up on it. But I would say 90% of the stories are generated from the reporters. That is our job. And the same with the photographers. The photographers come with the reporters when we have a story we're doing, but they're also out and about in the community taking pictures all over the place. And the Record's Matt McCarthy, ever since he's got a drone, he's really been quite the menace. He's using this drone to take pictures all over the place. But he's an incredible photographer. He's so good. And I've learned a lot even just working with photographers. So, just how they take a photograph, and with lighting, with where the sun is and the clouds and all that sort of stuff. How the composition of a good photograph. So you learn a lot of stuff. Where was I going with that? No, I don't think I have left any stones unturned. And stories are still coming to me because I've been writing Lifetime so long. People still contact me. I have about 3 or 4 sources that will always let me know somebody interesting has died. Maybe I missed their obit. I do read the obits every day. But sometimes I miss somebody, so they'll contact me and say, "Oh, did you know so-and-so died? And he'd be a really interesting story." But the one thing I don't think I've really expressed strongly enough is that journalists are the cornerstone of democracy. If you care about democracy, you have to care about the media. So don't stop reading the Record. Don't stop watching television. If we don't have the support of the community and there is no newspaper, who's going to be sitting at City Hall? Do you know what those people are going to do if they know there's no reporters watching them? Do whatever the heck you want. And that's going to affect your pocketbook because the taxes are going to go up and they're going to be pulling all kinds of shenanigans. They know we're watching. They know we're going to report to the public. And sometimes they're almost on their best behavior because of that.
I love that perspective.
It's like having the 2-year-old with the 2-year-olds in the room playing by themselves, and it's awfully quiet up there. And sure enough, you go up there, and the room's all torn apart, and his little sister has a haircut now, and is covered with magic marker. Yes, and I speak from experience. But we really are critical to a democracy, and you can see what's happening in the States with the crumbling of their media. And we don't ever want that to happen in Canada. No. So even if you're going to complain about the Record's lousy service in terms of getting your newspaper, walk down to the corner store and pick up a copy. You have to support the news media. That's all there is to it. If you care about your community, doesn't matter what's going on in Toronto. It matters what's going on in your own backyard.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. You've given me food for thought.
Good. That's my job.
Yeah, I'm going to say something that's coming from ignorance here, but if I use Facebook as an example, and all of these things that are popping up, not your beautiful pictures, Valerie. I'm not talking about
Okay,
that.
okay.
I know it's, but there's all this fake news that comes up, and I'm tempted to click something that seems interesting, or like, oh my God, that's happening. But I don't, because I know very likely it's fake news. So talk to me about that.
Okay, so I'll give you a perfect example. Our lovely prime minister, it popped up on Facebook that he's a marathon runner, and he was in a race in Halliburton on the weekend. So I didn't click on that for the very reasons, because I don't know if that's real. You go to a legitimate news source, go to CTV, CBC, any of those legitimate sources, and if the story's there, then you know it's real. And it turns out it was real. Him and his wife really did go on this race. So yeah. So yeah, I do find that some of the stories that pop on Facebook are entertaining, but it's not news. But there are legitimate sources out there. You can always find out the real story easily enough. You can even go on the rec. Oh, there he is. Oh, wow. Deja, you're amazing. Wow. Look at that. Isn't he cute?
Great photo. I love that.
Yeah.
I remember as a young person wanting to be a journalist, and actually wanting to be a war correspondent. I was baffled by war, and so intrigued to look at it from a different perspective, and then, made some bad choices possibly as a teenager, and, kind of put a lot of things on hold for a while. But I think the idea of, the travel and things that can be done depending on the area that you're working in can be really rewarding as well. Not just, it's a work thing, but there's a lot of learning that comes from travel and meeting different people and seeing different cultures and how they operate.
Absolutely.
Was there any particular person or culture that you really found like just really juicy? You just absolutely loved it. You wanted more and more and more. Like, was there one that stands out?
Yep. And I'm still supporting her. She's 25.
Yes.
Her name is Mohai. This was in 2010. I was assigned. I was working a long weekend for which I had volunteered, and my assignment was to talk to the owner of the Walper Hotel in Kitchener, because his company, they were donating money to build a school in Uganda. And so I went to interview him, and he'd been to Uganda a couple of times, and I'm quite adventurous. So I thought, I think I'd like to do that. So I contacted the agency that he had gone to Uganda with, and they said, sure, yeah, we'll arrange all that for you. So I did a big fundraiser, and I went to Uganda. I paid my own way. The money was for the school that was going to be built. And I was in Uganda. Unfortunately, I only had 2 weeks to be there. But on my last day, I went to visit a high school just outside of Kampala, which is the capital city. And I was really sick. I had this horrible cold. And the school had hired a paparazzi guy to follow me around, taking pictures of me blowing my nose. It was quite disgusting. But anyway, the kids performed for me. They had a performing arts group. And one girl, I just looked at that face, and I know that's my daughter. I just know that is my daughter. And she has been ever since. And she was only 15 at the time. Yeah. And she's now in her 20s, and I've been supporting her ever since. And that was the beginning of it. So I came back to Canada, and I said to my friends, we've got to bring these kids to Canada, and they can perform here. Talk about naive. The kids in Uganda didn't even have birth certificates. So, but I'm going to explain how all that transpired in my next talk. But because of that, I've been going back and forth every year, and we've done so much for the school that we helped to build, and we're continuing on with that work. And at the center of it always has been Mohai. Yeah, she is just a very special young lady. And I've been trying to figure out how to bring her to Canada, but so far the government has been thwarting my efforts.
Mm.
Yeah, but sometimes you just see somebody's face. That's
Yeah.
it. You just know.
I was in Kenya last year, and I got pneumonia while I was there. I was going to a CSL conference and wasn't able to attend the conference because I was so sick. But the woman behind the desk in the hotel gave me her WhatsApp number on her cell phone so I could phone her if I needed anything. There was no phones in the room. And it was remarkable. This girl, her name was Charity, and just the most beautiful young woman. We're still in contact, and I can't wait to go back. She just, I get how someone can touch your heart through their kindness or just through the energy they bring, and it's really powerful. So
and it's also about attitude, because I have a very open attitude about things like this. There was another reporter who had gone to a different part of Africa a couple of years earlier, and she hated every minute of it. And she couldn't wait to get back to Canada, and she will never step foot on the continent again. She was terrified while she was there. And she said to me a few times, I don't understand how you could do that. I don't know. That was just her perspective. She found another one. Holy cow. There you go. Look, that's my lead. Once you experience Africa, you won't soon forget it, especially the warmth of the people. That's so true.
So true. So true.
Yeah. So I've been going back every year.
Valerie.
What? Yeah, what?
No, yeah, where are you? Right? You said you wanted to bring her to Canada.
Yeah.
Why?
She wants to come to Canada. Yeah,
and
a number of her friends have come. Other kids that we had brought, but they managed to find ways of coming on their own.
Okay.
But she really, because there's very little future for a young person there. They can't get decent jobs, and it's just always a struggle. And she's so bright and she's so lovely that, yeah, if she could come to Canada. But that's
Does she have a career path that she would take, or first step is to come here?
Well, this is kind of funny because, when she was younger, she was always trying to emulate me. So she says, I want to be a reporter. Oh, okay, that's great. And so I took her when they were in Canada. She's been here a few times. And I took her to the newsroom, and she looked around. She goes, nah, I don't want to be a reporter. It's boring. All right. So then she decided she wanted to be an elementary school or teach little kids, like an ECE. And she did that for a while, didn't like that. Then she got into business, didn't like that. So now she's working in hotels, hotel management and food industry. So yeah, I don't know. It's just like kids here, they don't really settle on anything. They have to try lots of different things. And because she has my support, she can do that.
Exactly.
Most of the kids there, they just don't have that opportunity. No. Yeah, we brought 2 groups of kids here performing, and they were raising money and performing here in Waterloo Region. So, including at Unity. Unity really helped support the first time we brought them here in 2015. Unity was really a great support. Cool.
And they perform how?
Music and dance. Yeah, not singing. They don't really do much in the way of singing. It's mostly drumming. They have various instruments and incredible dancing. So I get so excited when I hear that music. Yeah, I love it. I love African music. I just love African people. They're just so wonderful. They're so warm and kind and funny and talented. And you see the kids, and they're just always dancing. They're always singing, and they can't do anything as simple as clean the floor without singing. Unfortunately, we've really lost all that, and their sense of community that we don't really have here. We think we do, but we don't. When they came here, they said, how come there's nobody outside? Where is everybody? Well, everybody's hiding indoors, So, yeah.
The level of fear is quite high these days.
Well, I think it's more that we're so comfortable in our homes. Look what we have here. They don't have all that there. They don't have a television in the house. They usually don't even have a radio. They just have a, small little, some cases, just a little hut, or a little brick building. So we have too many comforts here. Consequently, we want to stay inside, and watch TV.
I was talking to the driver of a taxi when I was there, and we had ridden together a few times, and he said, oh yeah, we're striving to be more like North America. And I went, no,
don't do that.
don't do that. Don't do that. What you have here, and the ability to actually, there needs to be some support, more support there than what they're probably getting now. But it would be great if we follow their path, of kindness and, really dedicated work and things like that. I think we would be further ahead.
Working together. They work together for every little thing they do. They work together where we don't do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Unfortunate.
So after those experiences, so my journalism had kind of a whole new perspective, a different way of thinking, different stories. And I wrote a number of stories from when I was there. And I love to share everything I'm doing. I don't post pictures of my food that I'm eating on Facebook, but I do post what I'm doing all the time, because Facebook, now that I'm retired, I don't have access to the regular newspaper anymore. And Facebook has kind of taken over all the parts that I would normally have done in the paper. Anything I would have normally written for the paper, I'm now doing it on Facebook. So if I come across something interesting, I will post it on Facebook, because I like to encourage people to get out in your community, get out through your province, and see what's out there, because we really do live in a remarkable place.
We do. We truly do.
See, now I didn't know that's why you did that.
Oh yeah, that's why. Yeah.
That's why having conversations is important, I believe.
Yeah, you'll never. Well, once in a while, I'll only post pictures of my grandkids if they're doing something really funny. But I don't post I don't post a lot of family pictures or anything like that, because I don't think that's of interest to anybody. But it's just mostly about, I want people to be exposed to things. Yeah.
Interesting.
That's awesome.
And people always know.
I just had an interesting idea of, I do a show on Friday called The Joy Show, Joy being an acronym for just one U. And so it's all about the people that I interview. And it just occurred to me, you should interview me on my show.
About what? Whatever.
Whatever, yeah. My life journey. How did I get here?
Oh, wow.
It would be a very, very interesting to flip the script for a day.
Yeah. It gets pretty intense, as you know, Barbara. When a reporter turns on, it can be very intense.
I know. I love it.
I know my family will say, would you just knock it off? Because I can't go anywhere without peppering people with questions, but that's because I'm interested.
That's awesome. And do you have any, plans moving forward, like big things that you want to work on, or different things that might be of interest to the rest of us? Any particular person you really want to interview, or?
Well, I'm working on two big projects right now. One is I received a writer's grant from the region to write a biography on this Afghani human rights lawyer who lives here in Kitchener. And the book is about her story from the time she was a kid in Kabul until how she ended up in the refugee camp in Pakistan and then ended up in Canada. But unfortunately, we started in the middle of COVID, so it was very difficult for us to get together. And it's been kind of hit and miss. We just get going, and then something stops, so it's been a long process. And I hope to eventually finish that. And then the other project is a young man. Oh, he's not that young. He's in his 50s. He's young to me, but he had reached out to me for one of my lifetimes. There was an organization. It was a Catholic organization in St. Agatha, west of Kitchener, where they used to run a orphanage, and he grew up partly in that orphanage, but they were really good to the kids. They had little houses. There was 5 houses, and they run it like a family. And one of the parents of each house had house parents, and they were the ones that took care of the kids. Anyway, Lorenz was part of that. He was a little kid there. So I interviewed him when that house father died a few years ago, and then he reached out to me a couple of years ago, and he said, I'd really like to write my own story, because when I learned about him, I thought, you've had an incredible life. You really have to learn about it. You have to write about it. So we've got together, and I'm going to write the foreword in his book. And he's actually working on his PhD in archaeology. He lives in Vancouver. So I'm going to be helping him with the writing process. And it's just a remarkable story. So I like to do that kind of thing as well, as to, if a writer or if somebody has it and they want to write their story, but in their own words, they're not going to hire me to do it. I'd like to help them to do that for them, to write their story. And in his case, because he is a prof, I told him, number 1 rule, mister, do not write like an academic. Make it interesting. Think in terms of storytelling. Yeah.
Can you briefly tell us what the house that you were talking about? The
Catholic organization?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was a regular Catholic orphanage. It was a great big stone building where all the nuns lived and where all the kids lived. And there was a new thought that maybe this wasn't the best place for these kids. So they built these little houses. There's 5 cottages on the property. They eventually tore down the original building, the big stone building. And they hired a house parent, and often the house parents would have their own kids. So the wife would stay home, and her kids would go to school with all the orphans that were staying with them as well. So each house might have 10, 12 kids. And the house mom was responsible for providing them with at least 1 meal a day, and then they would eat in the big hall together. But it was the first time a lot of these kids had that sense of family, sitting around the table together. And it's with the mom and the dad. And, dad would go off to work. And in this case, Lorenz's house dad, he was an accountant. So he worked for the CRA. So he'd go off to work every day. It really was a wonderful place for these kids. And it was very successful. But then, of course, things changed, and they decided, well, no, this is not the best way. After all, we should actually have these kids go out to foster homes. And they closed the whole facility down. Now, a couple of the nuns, they ended up down at the Mother House in Waterdown, if anybody knows about that place. And one of the nuns is still alive, so Sister Janet. So I went down there and spent an hour and a half with just chatting with her. And she was so lovely. I love chatting with her. So she was telling me all about the facility and its successes, and then her life too. So yeah, it was.
That's awesome. Well, we're down to our last 5.5 minutes. And how we like to close the show is to just ask each one, what do you think the most important thing people need to take away from this conversation?
You're asking me? Support your reporters, support your newspaper. Oh gosh, can I bang that into your heads any harder? Support us. We're important. Gosh. You know what? You know this book? She's a journalist. She was a journalist. She even talks in here about the importance of the media. So this is not coming from me. She says, checking out completely, turning off the news, turning our backs on our fellow humans doesn't help anyone. There. It's not just me, it's her. And
so says Valerie.
And Ellen Davenport.
And Ellen Davenport. I love that, because I sort of knew what you were going to say when I asked the question. What about you, Marg? What do you think the most important thing to take away from today is? How has it touched you?
Well, I will consider what Valerie has said, and I might choose to pick up a paper. And it's not because I don't support people. It's just I know me. but I'm always open. So I will consider what you're saying, Valerie.
Mhm. You don't have to read every story. You can just read the good stuff. The Lifetimes runs every Tuesday, so at least pick up the Tuesday paper.
Tuesday paper. Okay.
Tuesday
How
paper.
about I commit to doing that?
Okay, and I will be grilling you, so you better actually do it. I will be. There will be a test.
I'm not a rule follower.
No, I don't
You're
care.
not a rule follower.
Promises.
I do follow through with my promises, though.
Good. There
And
you go.
Barbara, you.
And me, well, I'm sort of rethinking my comment of ignore the media. No, you know, I often have told my students just shut the TV off and go outside and do something or be with somebody. Plan your life outside of that. But I always like to think of putting the news into perspective. So if you're going to watch it, like you said, don't get your news necessarily from Facebook. Could be right. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But take the time to take a look at a newspaper, because I believe what you're saying, newspapers give a more complete look at a story than any news channel ever could. They just don't have the time for it. So if you're wanting to get just, you know, a little dose of it, pick up a newspaper and read it and go from there. So I think I'm committed also to going and picking up a newspaper here in Toronto. So I'll figure out which one. I've got my neighborhood newspaper. I don't know if that really counts though, but
Sure.
that I'll read.
Yeah.
But I'll get one of the dailies and take a look. I did love the newspaper business, and so being a journalist just followed all my passions. But this is also one to be able to talk to people and to share a positive teaching with them that can improve their lives. So that's my thing. Thank you, Valerie, for being here. You have been a treat. And, you know, you stick around for a minute afterward and we can have a little chat after the show. And for everybody who's been watching, thank you so much. And be sure to like, share, subscribe, and tag us. Come on, a little hashtag there. That would be great. Keep us at the forefront of what you're thinking and doing. New Thought Media Network is providing wonderful, positive, and powerful content. And you can watch it 7 days a week, not just this hour. So thank you for watching. Thank you for being here. Thank you, Valerie. Thank you, Marg. Cheryl, we'll see you here next week. And for everyone watching, be sure to share this with somebody that you love, that you care about, because I really do think it's going to make a difference for our definite democracy that we live in. So take Valerie's words and give it a try. Thank you, everyone. Bye for now. See you next.